Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in The Mind-Gut Connection by Mayer. We're into chapter 4 now. We're going to take a look at pages 75 to 107. We begin with microbe communication in block 1. Microbe communication. Signaling molecules consist of hormones in the endocrine system from gut peptides that communicate within the ENS, influencing things like hunger, anger, fear, and anxiety. In other words, the emotional circuit. The nervous system and the endocrine system work in tandem to define the emotional circuit. Now, there is a negative influence of other microorganisms like parasites and viruses. They have a selfish agenda and interrupt our health and interrupt our wellness. This possibility does exist. And it causes CRF, stress response. Microbes mediate the gut-brain communication as sensory cells or, in special cases, immune cells. And any modification to the gut-brain connection can result in, again, emotional negatives like anxiety and depression. There can be very definite negative consequences. And then the gut reactions are sent back to the brain to form emotional, mental memories. Remember, the emotional circuit serves motivation and memory both. The emotional circuit, which is a tandem circuit of the nervous system and the endocrine system, they, in tandem, serve the emotional circuitry. So they function for memory and motivation both. They serve memory and motivation both. But in this lesson, Mayer wants to get into something a little more particular. He wants to address the endocrine system and the immune system within the endocrine system. Let's go to block 2. There are molecular specialized communications. There are specialized communications. Block 2, note 1. Triggering persistent change in receiving microbes. Takes place through hormones and neurotransmitters that communicate with the ENS. These microbes exist in a symbiotic relationship, and they transfer vital genetic information. The endocrine system and the nervous system gradually, the CNS was taken over. The CNS, the central nervous system, took over management of human behavior. It began becoming the major system that even regulated the endocrine system. And this happened as the brain developed more sophisticated emotional processing regions. So the ENS still has a great deal of influence over the emotional circuit, but it is in tandem with the CNS. They work together to signal and to encode emotion, and along with emotion, motivation, and memory. So block 2, note 3, microbes in symbiotic harmony. Microbes in the gut are of 2 types: symbionts, beneficial, and pathobionts, potentially harmful. Usually they coexist in harmony, and from these microbes flow constant hormonal signaling, constant hormonal information. So we're talking about many diverse connections. Microbes connect with the GI tract, the immune system, and the ENS system. Disturbance to these connections can result and will result in disease, depression, even autism. Communication with the brain travels through several parallel blood channels, and there is a conversion of hormones to nerve signals. Remember, where's the hinge point? Remember, the ENS system and the CNS system are hinged together at the hypothalamus. The hinge organ is the hypothalamus, and it does interpretive work, critical interpretive work. Now, 2.5, specialized communication of the immune system. Mayer wants to touch on this very important aspect of the ENS. This immune system communicates through immune dendrite cells in the inner lining of the gut, with tentacles that extend into the gut's interior. And these tentacles, they have pattern recognition receptors. They're called TLRs. They interact with a large variety of gut microbes, and when necessary, they will trigger an immune response. And that creates molecules considered to be neuroactive. So there is within this emotional processing circuitry, there is immune system circuitry. Nested within the emotional processing circuitry of the tandem connection of CNS with ENS, you have an immune system circuitry that does and can possibly trigger immune response with molecules that become neuroactive. So there is a very complex array of microbes and resultant molecules that send signals for enhancing our immune system, also for enhancing emotional circuitry. But block 3, we conclude by really saying that fundamentally the endocrine system is the emotional operating system. At a very fundamental level, we can categorize the endocrine system as the emotional operating system. That is its general function. Beyond that of digestion, of course. It's the higher function, I should say. It is the higher function as emotional operating system working together with the central nervous system. It is the higher function beyond digestion, transcending digestion. So 3.1, the brain's emotional operating system works in tandem with the ENS, causing microbe composition to be altered with regard to the activation of specific genes, while the immune system and nervous system continue their bidirectional dialogue using the following signaling molecules: gut peptides, cytokines, and neurotransmitters. The microbiome is constantly in communication with the brain, called as we know, the gut-brain axis. Therefore, the gut microbiome are part of the brain's emotional operating system. It is a two-part system working in tandem with each other. The CNS, the central nervous system, and the ENS, the endocrine system, they work in tandem to process emotion and to encode emotion for memory and for motivation. This is why this neurophysiology is important for philosophy, is important for theology, because this system working in tandem hinged together at the hypothalamus, sends emotional imprints, emotional encoding, to imprint memory and to deeply imprint motivation. And memory and motivation both have a very deep emotional aspect to them. So it becomes a very relevant study. This neuroscience is extremely important to plug in with our fields of study in theology, which we've talked about it in the past, but imprinting the heart, again using heart as a metaphor, but imprinting the unconscious, or as phenomenology calls it, imprinting the motivational body state. Well, imprinting that emotional body state is in Greek called tupos imprinting, and that is the image of those deep imprinted image on a coin. That's what the word is taken from. And so this imprinting of our unconscious, this imprinting of our heart, is a deep imprinting that needs a deep emotional component to make it effective. And now we are learning what that emotional component consists of within the field of neuroscience, within the field of neurology. And it is a microbe communication system that encloses within it specialized communication systems, but fundamentally is all systems are nested within the larger emotional operating function of the ENS in tandem with the CNS, joined at the hinge of the hypothalamus. So this becomes a very critical lesson, I think, because it does speak very specifically about many diverse connections. I think block 2 is normally your key moment in a triad. So let's go to block 2 and take a look at note 4, many diverse connections. Microbes connect with the GI tract for digestion, the immune system for possible immune response, and the ENS system for emotional brain processing. That's 3 distinct interactions, 3 distinct microbe communications. Disturbance to these connections result in disease, physical disease, mental depression, even autism. And the signaling travels through parallel blood channels as hormones become converted to nerve signals in the interpretive hinge organ, the hypothalamus. So I think the key point has to be block 2, note 4. I think if you key in on block 2, note 4, you get the gist of what Mayer is trying to illustrate here, a greater complexity than what we really initially think. It's new research. This really has just emerged in the last couple of years. I was completely unaware of this field of study until my friend Samar pointed it out to me, and she's right. It's an extremely important area of study in neuroscience, and it directly relates to theology, and it directly relates to phenomenology. And so I'm very grateful that she pointed me to this particular aspect of neuroscience. But Mayer is correct. We have a very interesting image of diverse connections for diverse encoding. The GI tract for digestion. The immune system for immune response when necessary. The ENS system as part of the emotional processing network in tandem with the central nervous system. So I think we'll wrap up there, but I think really if you want to key in on the central issue of this lesson, it's going to be Block 2, Note 4. That's going to wrap up Chapter 4, pages 75 to 107. And the next lesson is going to be pages 107 to 137. Our next reading will be 107 to 137. So 30-page chapter coming up next. That'll wrap up Chapter 4, pages 75 to 107.